we're here, I think, is June 12th, I think is what my notes indicate. So we have some language on the table. I didn't know if you guys had any counters to the language that we had proposed back in April and back in June.
Yes, we do.
Okay, that'd be great. So we could do that first, if you'd like.
All right.
Well, thank you. Could you make the font any smaller, Theo?
That's my fault.
Yes,
I got
it
new
is,
glasses.
but
They work really well. Don't need the extras for everybody else to sign in.
No.
All right, in the document in front of you, we are giving our counter proposals to each of your proposals. And we start out with Article 2, Section V, which is job sharing. And in number 3C, eligibility, you had a request to change from 3 years to 2 years that they would be eligible to make applications. So we agree with your request.
Okay,
So we can TA
that'd be
that particular
fantastic.
request.
Awesome. That's a way to start the day, right?
That works. All right.
Comes with a 5% pay increase.
See, you say that now, but we've already agreed on this one article.
That was in the fine print.
All right. Next, we have Article 3, Section O. Substitute employees and interim employees. You had some requests about time, about voluntary transfers and that type thing, and we want to keep present language.
Okay, can I ask why, one of the reasons why we looked at that is we have like interim employees who work, more than 99 days in the year, and we just thought they're not eligible to voluntarily transfer, so they have to wait till the end of the year, when their position ends anyway, and then make application after voluntary transfer, after UAT, after all of those other things have happened. These teachers who've already worked, maybe a full year, and they're kind of out in the cold starting fresh. So what was your objection to not letting them participate in voluntary transfer?
Okay, yeah, we understand that, but our position has more to do with our current employees and their ability to be able to move about upon their requests. And so we felt that that would be an interference or a limitation on their ability to move. That was our position on that, and that's why we...
Well, it doesn't interfere with their ability to move. It just creates more, that there's more people, I guess, applying for jobs. But so that would be your objection, that there'd be more people applying during voluntary transfer?
Again, we just feel that we wouldn't want to limit the opportunity for our current employees.
Okay. We're going to have to talk with our people on that one first.
All right.
And agree.
All right, Article 5B, we'll give you language on that one when we talk about, our proposals, but we basically want to keep current language. I think you wanted to do the three...
Wait, here's 5B.
I'm sorry?
5B?
Right. It will be in the
Okay.
proposal. I'm just referring to it right now.
Okay.
It will be
gotcha.
in our proposal because we have 5B as well. So it's in our other proposal. But just to let you know, since it's not there, I don't want you to think we forgot it, that we're keeping current language.
Okay.
All right? And then Appendix E, family medical leave, current language as well.
Well, the problem with that one is it's against the law. I mean, that's what our problem is. We have an attorney general opinion letter that states that you can't run them consecutively, you have to run it concurrently. So we can't have somebody taking all their sick leave, taking all their personal leave, and then taking FMLA. Under the law, the 12 weeks is the 12 weeks.
Okay. Well, our attorneys advise us that it's not a requirement, and so that's a position. That's why we're taking a position. Not that
Okay.
they do speak to it, but it says the district may require. It doesn't say it's required, though.
You might want to check with your attorneys again, because we just got another opinion letter came out with the same issue, talking about collective bargaining and whether or not we could bargain something different, and the Attorney General said, no, you cannot. So we just got that from our attorneys a couple of weeks ago, which is a more definitive opinion. So I understand it's just an opinion letter, but I really am not interested in running afoul of the law if we can avoid it. So I would ask you to just look at it again.
Okay. Well, you know, when we first brought it up, that's what you shared with us, and so we went back to seek legal opinion, and we also looked at a reference information sheet put out by the Department of Labor that also spoke to that. And again, in both instances, both the Department of Labor as well as our attorneys clearly states that the districts may require, not that it's a required item.
Okay, well, I'll send you the most recent
Okay, sure.
legal opinion letter that we just got, and I'll share
Okay.
that with you.
No problem.
No, it's the national, it's the U.S. Attorney.
And then on the Article 8, Section N, mandatory in-service, we continue to present our position about 1/2 day of a PDD day would be given to teachers for mandatory in-service. And several things have happened. One, you know, we already had some certain things that were mandatory. Now we have new things that came about this year that are mandatory. And then a lot of the other mandatory in-service that takes place, not for everybody, but for a lot of teachers. And so what we believe is there's enough in-service where then we really need to have teachers have some time to try and get through all this that's required. For example, if a teacher does anything with money, everybody has to go through that in-service. And so, and a lot of people, you know, have to do that. And if they don't do it, then they're penalized actually, should something happen and they have not gone through the appropriate trainings. So we still feel that because of the demand on teachers' time outside of their work time, that we do need to give them some time to try and get through the mandatory in-service that's required.
Okay, because in your first proposal you had it was 1/2 of each professional development day, and this is 1/2 of a professional development day.
Right, so there is a
Okay, so
change.
there is a change there.
There is a
Okay,
change,
just want to
right.
make sure that wasn't a typo. All right,
Not a typo.
we'll certainly take this back.
Okay. All right. And those are our counters to your proposals.
Okay. Now, did you have anything further on what you had proposed? Because back in June, we had countered to some of your, to your initial proposals, we had provided counters.
Okay.
Let me look in particular which we haven't addressed. The advance notice of meetings that were in writing, and you had where comp time could be used on PD days and when students were not assigned to the teacher. We had countered with the, we had rejected the advance notice issue and then had countered with that prior approval would be needed to earn comp time, and then that they could use it one time per month during lunch or at planning. Oh, well, look at that. Thank you.
Handout for that.
On top of it.
Thank you. Thank you. And so one of the things we did, just so you know how this packet is put together, We just kind of responded to everything, even though if there were no changes, we just put it in anyway, so that
Okay.
we can make sure that we kind of addressed it with you.
Okay.
All right, so Article 3, Section B, we accept the changes in number 4. I'm sorry. We're keeping present language in 3B, employers' hours and conditions. We're just keeping present language.
Okay.
So we removed our request. And now in Article 3C, professional qualifications and assignments, number 4, we accept the changes, by May 1st in number 4, and we changed our request in number 5 from I think we had five consecutive years. Now we're saying the sixth consecutive year.
Okay.
We had the 5th consecutive year, and then we changed it to the 6th, and then the 4th school year as well permitted to use voluntary transfer. So instead of 5 and 3, we have 6 and 4. So we made a move there in terms of the change, trying to make it a little bit more comfortable for people to move around.
Okay. We'll have to look at that one.
All right?
I appreciate the May 1st. I think that would work for both parties.
Right. Yeah, you see the language there that covers that part.
Right.
All right? And then in Article 3P, secondary, middle, high, vocational, and alternative special school scheduling, we just wanted to make note of a change in a correction that needed to be made in number 5 about the appendix. It says it reads Appendix F, and it should read Appendix D.
Okay.
And we noticed in the counter proposal that we got, that wasn't included, so I just wanted to make sure that we,
I think that was the only change we made in our counter proposal. We left status quo on everything but that one. We changed the, fixing the Appendix F to a D.
okay. Well, the one that we got on June 12th, I don't think it was there, so that's why we just sent it back again, just to be sure
Okay.
that we didn't overlook it. Just to check, to be sure.
Okay.
And now in Article 5B, specific paid leaves. And number 2 and B, 2B is where you had your request, and that's what I was saying, we're going with current language.
Okay.
All right. Oops. And then our request.
Yeah, no, same thing.
All right. Then our request under a new number 13, paid bereavement leave, we still have that request on the table, 3 days.
Okay. That's still going to be a huge challenge for us, the amount of money that would cost. We had brought that up before, and that may be cost prohibitive. But we'll certainly take it back and talk about it some more.
Okay. As you know, we know that all the other units, have that, and so we felt that we definitely need to have that on the table,
Well,
for the other employees as well.
You're correct. SEIU, PBA, and ASOP have it. Miscellaneous and staff do not, as well as CTA. So the bulk of our employees do not have that.
Okay. But your bargaining units is what we were talking about.
Okay.
And in Appendix B, supplements, I'm sorry, we're saying current language.
Okay.
And then in Appendix D, the additional period supplement, we're looking at an increase from $25 to $30 per period.
Effective.
Right.
Oh, and that would be an
And if you notice, that starts July 1, 2020.
Okay. Okay. certainly we have a lot to talk about when we go caucus today, that's for sure. Thank you.
All right. And now do you,
Now for the Mike Burke Show.
Ooh.
Break in between or anything?
There's no intermission. There's some candy over there if you need to have some, and you might want some.
Oh, good,
'Cause
good,
this
'cause
is-
I have a little show first.
You might need that for the Mike Burke Show. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Burke.
he's been so quiet, I didn't know he was in here.
That's the way I try to keep it. Let's see, just a minute here. Well, good afternoon. It's good to see everybody again. You know, we're going to talk about salary, but before we get to the bottom, our proposal here, I wanted to take a few minutes to put some context around things, give you a little update on our budget situation, what the forecast looks like, and provide some rationale to how we arrived at our proposal. Just quick on the budget update. This year's there's a little bit new challenge with what came out of the state budget this year, just as far as creating confusion. I've seen it in our local newspaper. I've seen in editorials where the legislature and the governor got credit for providing basically a 3% increase to education funding for FY20, the school year we're in. That is really misleading. It was not a 3% increase, so I'm going to break that down a little bit for you. One positive thing they did do was they increased the base student allocation, which we've been asking for years. And you may recall, 2 years ago, or last year rather, that base student allocation only went up 47 cents. And we saw the money go on to, into safe schools and mental health and other areas. But the base student allocation is our kind of unrestricted main general revenue source that would naturally lend itself to addressing rising costs, including employee salaries and benefits. So we were happy to see the $75. But if you look at that, that means that generates about $12.75 million for our district. And if we put 100% of that into raises for employees, it would provide about a 1.2% raise. The reason that 3% is misleading that the state published is what they did was the Best and Brightest program, which has been around for a few years, used to be budgeted for separately in a separate state allocation outside of the FEFP. And the FEFP is, you guys have been with us here for a while, but that's the Florida Education Finance Program. That's really what drives our funding per student. And what they did for FY20 was they moved the Best and Brightest into the FEFP. So for our math teachers and stuff, what they did was they reflected that now. It's $284.5 million statewide. It's actually $300 million, but they had to carve off $15.5 million to settle a lawsuit that was recently addressed, and where the teachers won about the discriminatory practices, I guess, around the ACT and SAT. So $284.5 million was plugged in for FY20, and then they do year-over-year comparison. So for FY19, they showed it as a zero, and it really should have shown $233 million, but because it was outside the FEFP, they didn't bother to note that. So they kind of artificially inflated the increase to the education budget, really, I guess, by over $250 million if you net those two numbers. So that's what bumped it up to 3%, and that really wasn't a true increase. If I just back out the Best and Brightest to really give you a more accurate year-over-year comparison, it falls to 1.81%. And then if you look at, some of our money comes in the form of categoricals, and I'll show you the details, but if you look at the money that's restricted and you back that out, it falls to 1.58%. And then just something we've been dealing with locally here is there was some legislative changes to Senate Bill 7030 around, that was a follow-up to the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act, but making sure we comply with Senate Bill 7030 has resulted in our district covering charter school security cost. And the school district has made a commitment now that we're covering that cost for up to this whole year, and that could cost us about $5 million. So that was just another basically local thing impacting our budget that required some money. We identified some one-time savings from last year to help to pay for this charter school thing, and that's a one-year only deal. And the superintendent, we're working through that and with our charter schools. This is just a detail behind the FEFP, and I won't go through all the details, but I just wanted to point out real quick. So you can see how we're funded. The base student allocation, like I mentioned, statewide, it went up actually $75.07. And then in Palm Beach County, we get this district cost differential, so we get a little bit like about a 4% bump on that. So for us, it was $76.59 more per student. These are some of the categoricals. Safe Schools had a big increase last year. This year, relatively minor increase. We picked up about 1.3 million more. We're going to spend, including the charter school security, we're going to spend about $60 million on school police and security. So the money we get from the state only covers a fraction of it. You can see they reduced our digital classrooms allocation quite a bit. That fell $2.5 million, so they kind of, pulled from one pot to stick into others, which hurts us because, we had plans for these dollars for classroom technology. And then there's a new program here that's this turnaround supplemental services allocation. This is for like schools that are on the DA list and need additional resources. Mental health went up a little bit. About $400,000, and then you see that best and brightest, $19.8 million just for Palm Beach County, and that where there's zero the prior year, which is not really true. We had about the same amount last year, but that's what's inflating that increase. And again, this is just kind of going to the bottom line, and I already gave you the numbers, but this is specifically to Palm Beach County. When we look at everything, where it would have been reported as about a 3.13%, we're really more like 1.81% or as low as 1.58 if you back out these categoricals. This won't surprise you guys either, but I like to share it every chance I get. We're still in Florida. Unfortunately, education is not a priority. The funding for K-12 education is not a priority. The trend's going the wrong way. We've fallen from 36th in the country to 45th over the last 10 years, and I expect this trend to continue. And that's really a result of, in recent years, for about the past 3 or 4 years, the legislature has been insistent that they roll back the required local effort, which is the biggest component of our local school property taxes. And by rolling that back, it's holding districts and it's holding the state education funding back from growing, with the growth in property values. Now, the last 2 years, they did allow us to tax the new construction. So where we had a complete rollback for a few years, they have relaxed that a little bit, and they've allowed it to grow for new construction only for 2 years. But still, this policy is what I think is primarily driving Florida closer and closer to the bottom, because you don't see it in other parts of the country, and I'm concerned that we'll continue to fall. Anyway, if we could just get to the midpoint of the nation, you would see about a $531 million increase to our annual operating budget. Our annual operating budget is right at about $2 billion now. So at $531 million, it's a big number to begin with. But even in this, if you look at just the impact on our large district here, that's a sizable impact, even on a $2 billion budget. Unfortunately, that's never going to happen here, and that's why we did what we did as a community a year ago, and that really helped. Just looking ahead, and I provided the same information to our school board. Right now the legislature, they were meeting in Tallahassee, I think last week. They heard from their economist, Miss Amy Baker, who leads the Florida EDR, which does they provide an ongoing 3-year revenue forecast. So I follow that pretty closely. We've been hearing a lot of talk about potential recession. Some things that, you hear that in the news probably all the time, but what's going on now is the nation has had its longest streak ever of ongoing growth, economic growth, and they measure that through the gross domestic product. That was up through July this year, and that's when they hit the new record of 121 consecutive months. And the longer that goes on, basically, the better chance that there's going to be some type of correction or downturn. We had an inverted yield curve, and if Vicky's sister was here, Miss Leanne Evans, who's very accomplished in this area, that's something that's a little more wonky, but when the economists and the people that are trading in the bond markets and all that, the inverted yield curve is really kind of a red flag too. And what that means, and intuitively it just doesn't make sense, it means that you will get greater interest for a shorter term investment. So like the rate to borrow money for 30 years was actually lower than to borrow it just for 1 year, which doesn't make sense to you, right? If you think if you're going to put your money in the bank, the longer, usually, you sign a CD, you say, okay, whatever, I'm going to invest it for 2 years, you would get more money than you get for 1 year. That's when the curve's inverted, that no longer makes sense. There was a poll of CFOs conducted by Duke. They didn't call me, but anyway, there was 53% of CFOs across the U.S. believed there'd be a recession in the year 2020. Before the election, it went up to 67% if you just looked at the whole year 2020. And then the one thing, I don't want to be all doom and gloom, not all recessions are created equal. The one we went through in 2007, 2008, the Great Recession, that was a huge downturn. The housing market fell apart. The credit markets were, there was a lot of problems with bad mortgages and collateralized debt obligations and stuff. So most economists do not expect that we have another recession that would be anywhere of that magnitude, but it is still something to be concerned about. The State Board of Education recently came out with their budget request for next year, and in the past, the State Board was usually the most generous when they made their request. It never really seemed to go anywhere, but they would ask for like a 3 to 4% increase. We now have, the Commissioner of Education, Richard Corcoran, was formerly the Speaker of the House. So I'm not really surprised that now that the State Board of Education and the Florida Department of Education is coming in with a request that really kind of mirrors what he did when he was in power as Speaker of the House. So they've only asked for a 1.12% increase, which is pretty modest. The EDR has given everyone the financial outlook so that when the legislature starts in January, they know how much money they expect to work with. Unfortunately, it's not real optimistic. They do a 3-year forecast. They can, in year one, which would be FY21, there's enough revenue to meet the critical and high priority needs of the state. They're okay. But in years 2 and 3, they have a shortfall to address. And again, when they look at high priority needs for the state, critical needs, they're only looking at a 1.2% increase for us. If they said we'd really like to put 4% in education, then they would have a shortfall. So, if you set your expectations low, then of course your money's going to go further. And then the other thing that has my interest is I've been hearing some press around that the governor and also Commissioner Corcoran have interest in doing some type of massive teacher increase for next school year. And I'm not sure what that's going to look like or how massive it truly will be. But, we saw Governor Scott do this a while back when he was going up for his second term. The thing that concerns me about it is where's the money going to come from? Because Commissioner Corcoran has been, tasked with trying to develop this proposal within existing funding levels. So that makes me nervous that they may say, well, you know what, maybe you don't need as much money for class size reduction any longer. The Best and Brightest program, they were pretty vocal about that. That's certainly probably going to be revamped and rolled into whatever this next salary proposal is. So this could be the last year of Best and Brightest as we know it. But hopefully something good will come out of this for next year that we'll be talking about a year from now. Maybe the state will actually do something positive. I'm just worried that they're going to do it at the expense of something else because there doesn't seem to be any talk about allowing the hourly tax rate to grow naturally or to tap new revenue streams. It seems more like how can we redirect existing funds? There's been a bill filed about this. We just need to spend 80% in the classroom and that would solve our problems. Those things have floated over the years and they're usually kind of problematic because they overlook some pretty essential functions that have to be paid for as well. Best and Brightest, just a little FYI here. So the program's been revamped for this year. They've done away with that SAT and ACT thing. So right now we have a requirement. We have to do one-time recruitment awards of up to $4,000. We could have, I think, roughly 1,000 teachers potentially eligible for that. And then the retention awards are $2,500 for highly effective, $1,000 for effective. Those are one-time bonuses, really, right? These don't get, and that's one of the criticisms of the Best and Brightest program. It's a bonus program. It doesn't really get into the teacher's base salary, and it's not something you can count on from year to year. And then if there's money left over we could negotiate a recognition award, and that would be something we would bargain with you all. Looking at the numbers, I don't suspect there's going to be anything left over. I think the one-time recruitment awards, and if we try, we'll try to get as close as we can to these numbers, and that's probably going to wipe out our nearly $20 million allocation. We do have principals. There used to be the principal program was a little bit different as well. We had Title I principals and non-Title I. Now there's just one award of up to $5,000, and the principals have more stringent requirements. They have to be in their school for 4 years, which means they could be in the school today and have 3 years of history behind them, and then they're going to look at the school's history on how they've moved their scores, the same scores they use to calculate school grades. So we're sorting through that. Some good news, we were able to reach tentative agreement with all of our bargaining groups on health insurance, and we're happy about this as employees ourselves, and it's pretty remarkable. We've been able to go 7 or 8 years, depending on the plan you're in, but without a premium increase to the employee, which is pretty good. And then we're going to be opening up a employee health clinic on this campus here. We got a little construction work to do, but as soon as we get that done, we'll get it open. And then we made a change to the Healthy Rewards program, trying to be responsive to some employees' concerns where before, if you had a spouse on your coverage or domestic partner, both people had to satisfy the program requirements to get that $600 discount. We basically split that in half to where if one of the members is willing to do it, they can go ahead and do that on their own and get a $300 discount, and then at least it's not an all or nothing proposition, so that's seen as a positive thing. Okay, so if you were tuning into the budget hearing, we had our final budget hearing on September 11th. It was an exciting event. We anticipated every year. There's a lot of pageantry around it, and we rolled out the final budget. It was approved. We got a 7-0 vote, which is good. That's what you want if you're in Ms. Knuth's job or my job. But what we were able to do through the budget development process, with an eye on throughout that time, building the salary reserve. And when we first went into the summer months, our salary reserve in the original draft of the budget was at $17 million. We closed the books on last year. We did everything we could over the summer to build that reserve. We were able to get it up to $25 million. And $25 million, when you look at our workforce and all of our employees, that would pay for a 2.5% raise for all full-time district employees. And we do have some employee groups that are on a calendar year contract. So I always kind of deal with this a little bit. If they're on a calendar year contract, we end up paying basically for half the raise in one fiscal year, and then we have this tail financial impact we have to pay for in the next year. So that's why you see this. Just theoretically, if we settled for 2.5% with everybody, that would pretty much wipe out our $25 million reserve, and then we would know we need to set aside $1.9 million next year to pay for the annualized impact of that raise for those three groups. Okay, so anyway, this is really what set the context for our salary proposal. It was looking at how much money do we have, and what can we do for our employees. So this is our salary proposal. I tried to follow the same format we've been using in previous years. But anyway, we've looked at your bargaining unit, and this is estimated. And one of the things we got to talk about this year is it's a good thing, but it makes we have more and more teachers becoming highly effective. So out of 12,760 teachers as of this snapshot, that probably changes every day, but we had 85% of them, or 10,785, expected to be highly effective. And that's my best estimate at this point, working with our friends in HR. They're still finalizing that. I want to point out, though, 85%, that's much higher. We were at 65% last year. And then the other thing to look at is we've got a group over 1,000 teachers here that are not even evaluated yet, right? They're either new hires, almost 1,000 new hires. So if you back those groups out, and that's what the footnote says on the bottom, we actually have about 93% of our teachers that are evaluated coming in at highly effective. And I don't think it's a huge surprise, because some of the changes that were made to the evaluation process and through the JINC committee, but we're seeing that play out. So, that's a good thing. But what that means is then when we have to structure our salary settlements in line with the state statute requirements around performance pay. The more highly effective people you have, obviously the more it costs to provide that higher tier raise. So just starting with 2.5% and working our way back, we try to be fairly consistent with what we've done in the past. One thing that's a little bit different is on the starting salary. So we've been at $41,000 for 3 years. We want to stay competitive, in our region. So we're proposing that we would increase that by $500 and bring that up to $41,500. And then we're also including a 0.5% COLA. And then for the effective and highly effective, inclusive of that COLA, we'd be able to provide 2.65% for highly effective and 2.11% for effective. So admittedly, this is less than where we ended the last 2 years. You may recall, we were at 3.5% for highly effective last year, 2.75% for effective, and we had that for 2 years, but we didn't have the type of growth we had. We went from like 55 to 65% highly effective the past 2 years, and now it's really growing. The supplements, we already negotiated this. This is just the last piece of that. We had a 2-year deal to raise those 5% a year, so we've got to follow through on that, and that would take the district increase up to 2.6%. That's the part that's really being negotiated now is the 2.5, and then the best and brightest. I don't know exactly how that's going to shake out, but we know what our allocation is going to be. It's probably going to be on average about 2.8%, and again, that's a one-time bonus. It's not a recurring increase, but it is. We're seeing the state put more and more of our money into this best and brightest, so I did want to at least put it on the page. So that's really it. That's our proposal, and we can get you a hard copy of that. I'm happy to take any questions.
Just one clarification on the best and brightest slide where it said the 2,500 and 1,000 for teachers highly effective and effective. That's only for teachers in qualifying schools, which is about 51% of schools in Palm Beach County. So in half the schools in Palm Beach County, teachers are slated to receive $0 from best and brightest, unless of course they've never worked a day in their life. Then they might be eligible for $4,000. So with respect to anything best and brightest, half the teachers in the district are going to get $0, assuming that we run through the $20 million through the mandatory payments on those other bonuses. I just wanted to make that clear because it stated in there that the principal bonus was contingent on school grade calculation increases, but it didn't make reference to the fact that the teacher 2,500 and 1,000 are also contingent on that.
Okay.
So, for instance, I use this when I talk to legislators. Suncoast, which is universally recognized as one of the best schools in the country, no teacher will get a penny from Best and Brightest because while they've been an A school for probably the entirety of the existence of the programs they have now, they did not apparently increase their growth on average by 3% over the past 3 years. So nobody will get that 25 or that 1,000.
Okay, well, I appreciate you sharing that. I'll have to circle back with HR and figure out why we thought we had 93% of our teachers eligible.
Well, 93% are the highly effective. It's the best and brightest.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
That's the state has their new rules, and they, seem to jerry-rig it to favor who they want to favor it. So.
They're
Okay.
convoluted, so.
I'll try to bring back more information then next time on how that plays out. Then we may be able to negotiate those recognition supplements.
Yeah, a couple of questions for you, Mike. So it's clear the total cost of the $19.6 million includes benefits at the new 18.35%. How will this 500 added to the starting salary impact the new hire schedule?
We would have to bring them up, right? You mean if you were hired in, say, August, and now you're
So then
hired at
each one on the
41,000.
new hire schedule would presumably have to go up by the same, and I understand that you're going to look at this and would have to commit to it, but they would have to each come up by 500. Would that then also apply to every other teacher in Palm Beach County?
Well, I don't don't know if that's true, because the new hire salary schedule, when we look at it, it's based upon someone with the similar years of experience in the district. Unfortunately, Mark Mitchell's actually not here. He's out of the country for the next 2 weeks, but he would be the best person to explain it, and maybe we can get Lori Barefoot in here for the next one to look at what the new hire salary schedule would look like based upon this kind of increase. What they do is it's not necessarily going up 500 per person. It's the starting salary goes up 500%, or 500%, $500. Goes up $500, and then the other ones go up the percentage. So if you, I think, and I would really want Lori to talk about this. So if you were a year, and then we had it set out for a scope of a certain number of years, a teacher that works for us here and is in that range, what are they typically making? And that's where they figure out that new higher salary schedule. It's not just automatically plugging in.
I think what's going to happen is we're going to see that the solution, by looking at it in that way, is going to be kind of like going to the doctor when you think you're well and you find out you're sick, and oftentimes the treatment is far worse than the disease itself. And I say that because there are a number of teachers that, while they fit into that are existing teachers, they fit into making slightly, and when I say slightly, anywhere from $5 to $45, $50 more than a teacher slotted into the new hire schedule. And that schedule was set pretty well to make sure that no existing teacher was negatively impacted.
Correct.
$500 is going to completely turn most of that upside down in most of those brackets, at least in my opinion, when I look at that off the cuff right now. So I think we're going to find that that's a tougher fix than just a little bit of an adjustment here and there. And then it will move, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I think we would then have a challenge of that type of adjustment for some without it applying to all in this particular type of circumstance. We certainly want to see the most teachers possible benefit from any agreement that we have. So that's the reason for the question as to how that might shake out. I know we'll be talking, and there will be some more information exchanged on this. But that's really my questions at this time. One other thing, when we get done with the questions, Mike, if you don't mind, I'd like to go back and capture slides 2 and 3, just so that I have them for when we're caucusing and I'm doing some adjustments to my spreadsheets as well.
Yeah, I'll email you this whole presentation.
Okay. That's fine. No, it's just.
We'll go back and look at that.
Thank you.
Just a clarification on the salary placement schedule, and that has not gone up in a number of years because we've kept it at a solid amount. And what happens is that when new hires are coming into the district, they may have credit for, I'm going to take an example right out of the book that I'm dealing with. A teacher has 18 years. They don't get placed on year 18. They get placed on 17. And then once the contract gets finalized, then they get moved up to get credit for that last year. So they're getting their raise that way. And if you start adding $500, I'm looking at your placement schedule now, and you make it $41,500, then that everything else is going to have to go up $500 because your next salary placement is $41,470. So it's like Gordon was pointing out, it's going to be a trickle effect, and we've been trying to prevent what we've had in the past, where people were coming in and making more than our people, by maintaining this placement schedule as a solid straightaway, so that we would have that differential between the newbies and the oldies.
And I think the 500 also has the potential to reinvent in a smaller way, but still reinvent it, the whole compression scenario, which we've struggled very hard to take care of in various ways.
We're happy to look at that. I was just looking at I looked at some of the neighboring counties, and then also just the fact that we hadn't touched it for 3 years. I thought it was maybe time to revisit. But let's see how that would play out, and we'll get with Mr. Mitchell and figure that out.
I have no more questions or requests for clarification at this time.
Did you want certain slides?
Oh, yeah, the 2 and 3 is going to be all I need at this point. Actually, 3 and 4, that's it.
I can, yeah, agree.
And this will be quick and easy.
Would you like me to go stand up by the slide for the picture?
I don't want to break my camera. You asked for that one, Mike.
Yeah. I'll email
Okay,
this
one
to
more.
you as well.
Yeah,
though.
one more. Yeah, I'd
Okay.
appreciate that anyway, thanks.
All right.
Boy, you turn red.
Yeah.
Thanks.
This way I can't go back and change the numbers and then send it to them. I guess. All right, well, I appreciate your attention. You know, I have to always do my little story along with these things.
Mr. Harris, you have something to say?
No, we just need to caucus at this point.
Okay. We can give you the room if you'd like.
Okay.
Okay.